So, Sarah, my master welder, when did you learn to weld?
I learned to weld last summer. My first project was a 3x3x3 cube. My welds turned out pretty awesome on it, and I liked welding. It was fun to play with metal. It was fun to glue two things together to make something out of nothing.
Okay, so your dad decides to build a boat. What got in your head to get involved?
I could spend more time with my dad. I could do a little bit more welding. I could learn a lot of things, even learning how to figure out problems as we go along. Learning how to manipulate things when we do the top of the frames, and we notch the top of them so that we can bend them out or bend them to the correct angle. That was something I would have never thought of, and things like that are fun to learn.
Okay, it's hard work. It's messy work.
Very.
You're not a big girl.
No.
How's that working out for you?
It's great. I love it. I
Yeah?
love being the tiny little thing on site doing hard work. I like getting dirty. I like busting my butt because then I can sleep at night. I feel like I've done.
Do you think anybody could build a boat?
Yes, anybody can build a boat. It does take a lot of determination. It's a very, very long process, especially when you can only do it on the weekends. It's an expensive project, so you have to do little bits at a time, paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, working paycheck to paycheck. 'Cause you can only buy so much steel because steel's expensive. But yes, anybody can do it. Just a little bit of research.
Okay. What would you tell a new person who is going to build a boat? What to look forward to, what to watch out for?
There are going to be problems every single day. No matter how much planning and work you do, there is going to be a problem. Don't get frustrated. Don't get upset. Don't give up. Work it. Figure it out. It's not the end of the world. Fun. Some people like to come out and join us. That's fun too. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and share.
So, how long you been welding?
Oh, I learned how to weld in high school, so I was about 15 or 16, so I don't know, I learned about 12 years ago.
Would you say you're a great welder?
Not great, but I get by. I don't think I've had anyone complain about many of my welds. I mean, every once in a while it's like, oh crap, what am I doing wrong here? But I'm not the one out here welding pretty much every weekend, so I get by.
What would you say your main role is on this boat build?
I think I kind of have two. I like to think of it at least. On the weekends, it's real hard with having 3 kids and trying to get out here with Sarah and I both. Kind of have to have someone wrangle the children a little bit, keep them out of the way, keeping them off the site. So that's one role. The other one is pretty much muscle. You need an idea, you're having a problem, come out, kind of give it a look and see what's going on. Or if you need heavy lifting, that's always where I come involved, is just putting the back into it when you need it.
Okay. So nobody's required to be participating in the boat. Why do you?
Why wouldn't I? I mean, it's not every day you get to come out and weld on a big old piece of steel. I mean, it's something that's a lot different. Not everybody gets to do it, so coming out, helping out, don't mind helping. I enjoy doing that. And it's an interesting project to be a part of.
Do you think anybody can build a boat?
I think that with the proper will, anybody could. It's not something that everybody's going to do, obviously, because not everybody does. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time. It takes a hell of a lot of thought. I mean, I think building this boat, you probably had pretty much your whole life into it. Planning, thinking, even just the stages of just in your head. But you got to the point, you got the plans, you got the drafts, you got the CAD work, and you do it yourself. So I think if someone really wants to, they're perfectly capable of doing it. But it's got to be something that's in you.
What would you say to somebody who was going to build a boat on their own in their
If you're gonna
backyard?
build a boat on your own, I hope you got lots of time and lots of money. Otherwise, it's gonna take you a real long time.
Okay. What would you say to the YouTube subscribers?
YouTube subscribers, like, subscribe, share.
Why?
We need to get the word out. Come on over, watch us. We can be building it. We always have people coming out and helping out, which is cool. Get to teach people who's never welded how to weld, how to plasma cut, stuff like that. So, yeah, like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.
Emma, our master gopher, master grinder. Why do you help Papa build a boat?
Because I like hanging out with my family. It's something big, and so this gives me something to do on my free time when I'm not doing homework or I'm not playing with my siblings, and it's really fun.
Are you learning anything?
How to weld. I like learning how to weld, how to grind, how to use the plasma cutter. That was the first thing I did. I don't like grinding because like the sparks go all over me, and then then like the plasma cutter, it's like you have to be like really steady, and my hands are.
What have you learned?
How to plasma cut and grind and weld, and also that if you put your mind to it, you can do it.
Do you think this is something that any kid could grow up to do?
If, like I said, if you put your mind to it, you could easily do something. If you put your mind to building a car or building a boat, do it. Or if you have the money. Determination.
What would you say to other kids your age? They can get involved in a project like that, should they?
Yeah, it's something to do on your spare time. If you don't have a lot of free time and you're always busy, I wouldn't recommend starting something this big. It takes a really long time to fulfill this, making this. So
Caleb, our master grinder. Boat building is dirty, hard, labor intensive, cold on winter days and hot on days like today. Why are you helping build the boat?
You sure I can't have these shades, man? I mean, it's like hella bright out here.
Everybody else got through it. I'm keeping that too.
Alright, I'm hoping to build a boat because it'd be a good experience because I want to build a boat eventually. Go out to sea and stuff. And just seeing where some of the problems coming up and how to deal with them on just a different boat will kind of help me get used to doing it on my own boat. So it's just a good experience.
Okay. Have you ever welded, grinded, or plasma cut before?
No, not really. Never really, I mean, just some amateur stuff, messing around, geeky little stuff, but never on a level like this where it's just every weekend go out and start doing something different.
What's your favorite part?
Probably the end, because then you just get to relax, drink booze.
No. Oh, the end of the day?
Yeah.
Okay, we may cut that part out.
No. Favorite part, honestly, just seeing this whole thing come together and take shape. It's just really cool to see a bunch of just metal laying around in piles come together to a freaking boat.
What have you learned so far during this whole process?
Grinding sucks. Um, Grinding sucks. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Do you think anybody can build a boat?
Yeah, anybody can build a boat if they really wanted to. I think it's just a matter of having the drive and the passion to stick with it and make a plan and go for it, you know? Just gotta be passionate about it.
When you meet people on the street, so to speak, and you tell them you're building a boat, what do they say and what do you say? What's that conversation look like?
Well, normally the first thing I ask is where, and then I tell them here in town, and they just lose their shit because they can't even fathom why anybody would build a boat landlocked. And my reaction is always, you know, if you want to do it, it's something that you wanted to do, you're gonna build it. I mean, if you wanted to build surfboards in Colorado, build surfboards. You know, don't travel to California. You don't have to live in California to do something that you like. You know?
So if somebody said they wanted to build a boat in their backyard, what would you tell them? What's the goods and the bads?
Well, I tell them that, you know, they don't have a lot of money. It's going to be slow at first, and that's kind of hard to kind of stick with it if you don't have enough to keep going every weekend. But, you know, if you stick with it, the payoff's always, you know, exactly what you wanted, a boat, and it's your own thing to take wherever you want.
Okay. What would you say to YouTube subscribers?
You know, if you like what we're doing here and all our little shenanigans and stuff and what we're trying to accomplish, like, share, subscribe to the Lady Do channel, and as always, have a great day.
Captain Donnie, the master fabricator and owner of everything. Why are you building a boat?
Throughout my life, I've built and driven race cars. I've served in the Navy. I've served on a fire department, ambulance, search and rescue. I tend, as just my personality, to find things that are exciting and fun. A while back, went through a divorce, lots of things happened, I had plenty of time to think. And I got to thinking about it, and I realized that I'm not the guy to be sitting on the front porch swing watching the kids and grandkids grow old. I'm not the guy to sit there yelling at the neighbor kids to get off my lawn until I die. That sounds boring. So I decided I got to figure out something long-term that I can do with my life, so to speak. Anyways, travel came to mind, and I started looking at it. And actually, the kind of traveling I want to do, which is learn other people, learn other cultures, see other things, if you're doing it by plane and hotels, you get to spend a week, maybe 2 weeks, and it costs a fortune each trip. There's no way I'm going to be able to afford that. I don't even have the ambition to go after that kind of money. And I thought, man, with a boat, you can just go where you want to go and stay on your own. It'll be cheaper. Anyways, within it, I seen a picture of a boat. It was called the Diesel Duck. I ended up ordering prints to it. It was done by a man by the name of George Beeler, who's since passed on. And I started studying it. It's basically a Pacific Northwest fishing troller as opposed to trawler. Trawler drags large nets to scoop up. It's basically clear cutting the ocean. Anything that comes up in that net is dead and mostly hamburger. So they need a large hold to hold all these fish, or all this fish product, because it's basically hamburger and it's going to become fish fingers and such. So they ain't going to get a premium price for the fish, so they need large holds to make a profit. A troller, by contrast, puts out outriggers, long poles that come out the side of the boat, and behind it they drag a mile of fishing line. Every 10, 15, 20 feet, they have a hook with bait. And they troll for a while. Then they start pulling in the lines, they collect the fish, but the fish are in pristine condition. These are the fish that end up in As such, they get a much higher premium for their fish, for their cargo, and they can go out with a smaller hole. The troller is also typically a mom and pop fishing boat, meaning it's a family that go out, do this fishing, and they make their living by it. As such, it needs to be efficient, it needs to be seaworthy and safe. If there's a storm in the Pacific Northwest, which they can be brutes, they still have to make a living. So they could still be going out. And this kind of a boat is lean, efficient, and seaworthy for those purposes. And it's, in my opinion, the perfect boat to convert to a live-aboard ocean crossing boat.
Okay, so we have this huge boat here, and I know you can build them out of wood or steel. Why did you decide to build this out of steel?
I got a presentation that I'll add here in a bit, but it basically comes down to I'm not a woodworker. Wood joints need to be tight for the glue to hold properly. If you cut it too short, you start over. I've built things out of steel, from horse trailers to race cars. This is a bit bigger and heavier welds than I've ever had to do, but it's something I understand. If the joint ain't perfect, I can weld up a gap. If it cut it too short, I can weld a piece back on to make it longer and then be the correct length. Welds are typically stronger than the base material, so I'm not losing strength when I do this. It's okay. It's pain, but it's okay. There's many other reasons, and I'll get into those with the slide presentation, but I've never captained a boat, so to speak, so I'm going to hit something, or I'm going to grind up against something, and I think steel is the best material to take those blows, to take the mistakes, and not end up at the bottom of the water.
So we've only been working on this since November. What have you learned so far after starting getting this far?
Well, we've only started construction
Right.
of the boat itself since November. I've actually been working on this a lot longer than I care to admit, both in design and planning and deciding which boat and so on and so forth. But since November, I've discovered several things. One, the gantry crane was a must. I thought at first when I was putting it in, it was going to be more of a luxury item, and it's not. Without the gantry crane, we would be nowhere near where we're at. I've learned that Sarah's a better welder than I am. Not easy to admit, but there it is.
What's your favorite part of building the boat?
The favorite part of building the boat?
The process.
I would have to say the times when there's an issue, and me and Sarah, Nick, whoever, almost always it's me and Sarah, but sometimes Nick is here, sometimes Mike is here, sometimes Bobby's here, sometimes Caleb's here. We sit and we figure it out. Everybody pops out ideas. Everybody kind of works the problem until we get through it. Generally, I have last say. That may or may not be the best thing in the world. There's been a couple of times that admittedly it wasn't the best way, that the other person's idea was. I do try to, take it all into account. But yeah, actually having people come over. Another thing that's kind of fun is the look you get when you tell somebody that you're building a 44-foot steel boat to cross an ocean. They look at you like you've grown two heads.
Why are you building a boat in Colorado?
Yes, the other big question. Yes, I understand there's no ocean here. Yes, I understand that we're almost a mile high in altitude. But this is where I make my living. This is where I earn the money that I put into the boat. If I was to move to Oregon or Washington or somewhere on the East Coast to do this, where the parts are readily available, knowledge is readily available, sure, it would be a bit cheaper to do all this, but I can't be guaranteed that I'll make a living here. So I do it here because this is where I make my money. Pueblo, Colorado is not the best place to build a boat. The shipping for the transmission, just to get the transmission here, is almost $200. That's $200 that could have went into steel or something else. But this is where I am. When the boat's done, I'll haul it to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which has an inland waterway all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. And that'll cost me too. But I can't do it unless I'm making a living.
Is there anything you want to say to our YouTube viewers?
YouTube viewers, I'll say this. This isn't an extraordinary project as some may think. It's like anything else, you do it one step at a time. If I was to think about this entire boat and what all needs to be done, I get overwhelmed. So I don't. I figure out what's today's project, and I concentrate on today's project. Some will say that it's fantastically expensive, and I guess that depends on what you call expensive. When I'm done, I expect this to be the cost of a lower-end home. Well, and actually with today's prices, a very cheap home. You know, if I'm into it $150 by the time it's all done, that ain't too bad, really. Because it will be my retirement. And I'm doing it paycheck to paycheck as I can. And it's going to take some time because I don't make huge bucks. But when I'm done, my home will be paid for. It'll be done. So I don't think that's so expensive. I won't have a mortgage. I won't have electrical bills. I won't have all the other bills that come with the home I'm in now. So it'll be cheaper. That's good.
Do you want to do Can Anyone Build a Boat?
Can anyone build a boat? Yes, absolutely yes. If you are capable of getting up in the morning and going out to your backyard and either bang some pieces of wood together or weld some pieces of metal together or whatever happens to be your chosen material, because we're each different, you can build a boat. Is it going to take longer if you don't make a bunch of money? Yeah. But possible? Absolutely. Anybody can do this if you just stop, think about it, solve it. There's an old saying that says, don't just stand there, do something. And I do not like that phrase. The proper phrase in my mind is don't just do something, stand there. Think about it. Figure out what's the best way to get through it, and then do it. There's no rush. We're not in a race here. This is a process. And if a person just takes their time and does it right and thinks about what they're doing, anybody can do this. Anybody.
Anything else you would like to add, Captain Donnie?
I would say like, subscribe, and share. Now, everybody, all videos say that, yada yada. I'm not ever going to make any money on the YouTube thing. I don't actually expect to or care to. But there's people out there who are dragging their feet, wishing they can do something, but they're too afraid to do it. Our society has gotten to the point where we're afraid to do anything unless we've got a degree in it. I don't have a degree in boat building, welding, or any of this stuff. But I'm doing it, and it'll get done. So I'm hoping that people will see this. They'll say, well, you know, all I want to build is a race car, or all I want to build is a house. And they'll go, you know what? I can do this. That's what I'm hoping, and that's what all these videos are for. If you happen to be building a boat and you learn something from it, or you decide, wow, you know, I can actually do this. You know, from watching his videos, I know what not to do and what to do. And it's all about the learning process, okay? So we're all YouTube certified now. So what? At least we're out doing something, building something, making something in our lives. So that's why I say like, share, and subscribe, so that it gets out, more people see it, and maybe more people be inspired to do something.
Okay, well, this is my presentation on the how I came up with the hull material for my boat. Now, with the choice of a hull material, there are many materials possible to build this hull, to build the hull of a boat, and many factors one needs to consider when choosing this material. And some of the things to consider for the materials, which I've selected 5, because those were the only 5 I was even remotely interested in, was wood, fiberglass, steel, aluminum, and ferro cement. And for those that don't know ferro cement hull is basically a metal lattice encased in concrete. It's very popular over in Cuba, where they didn't have a whole lot of wood, fiberglass, or steel, or aluminum to build their fishing fleet. So instead, they built it with ferro cement, and they turned out some really great boats. So nothing to turn your nose up at. Now, considerations as far as I'm concerned are skills to construct, handling of material, tools, impact resistance, rub resistance, repair at sea, repair in third world countries, maintenance, and the cost to build the boat, of course. Now, each of these materials must be thought through and how they affect your particular situation. Now, some materials require more skill than others to build the hull. Woodworking, fiberglass layup, welding, cement troweling, all of these are skills you're going to need to build a hull of whatever material. And what skills do you possess? What skills can you learn? If you don't have a skill, how long will it take you to learn that skill to be proficient enough? And when I say that, I mean, I'm not a woodworker. I believe it would take me years to come up to get proficient enough at woodworking that I could build a boat that I'd be comfortable going offshore in. And that's the kind of boat I'm going to be doing, is going offshore. Now, handling of the material is a consideration in that, for instance, steel is heavy and you'll need hoists of some sort, where fiberglass cloth is light. The epoxy can be carried in one hand. And then, for instance, the cement, I suffer from the lime in cement, and it eats holes into my skin. So what will you have to purchase to build to handle this material? I, for instance, built the gantry crane, but a lot of the materials you may not have to build anything. Will the handling of the material annoy the neighbors? And when I say this, welding, grinding, banging on steel may annoy your neighbors, where fiberglass, the smell of the epoxy could annoy the neighbors. The smell ain't going to be around for long, so you might be able to get away with it. Woodworking, you got saws, and banging. Choice of materials, can be affected by your neighbors. Tools. What tools are needed? Are they expensive? Or if they are power tools, do you have the power? For instance, I needed a fairly large welder to do mine, and I didn't have 220 volt out at my site, so I had to run power out to there. Some materials need a lot of tools and some very expensive tools. This affects the overall cost of building. If you got to drop $2,500 into a welder, that's $2,500 that isn't going into the boat. What tools do you have and what will be needed? Think that over. Decide and let that affect what your whole material is going to be. Impact resistance. It will happen. It's not if, it will happen. How does this material stand up to a big impact? We're not talking about little impacts, we're talking about a big impact. What happens to the material in a big impact? Does it bend? Does it crush? Does it crack? Does it get a big hole in it? And can it be repaired properly? I personally don't believe that once a fiberglass boat gets a hole in it, that it can be repaired properly, because it'll never be that monolithic hull again. Then you have, of course, rub resistance. Again, it will happen. Fender slips and the hull rubs against the wharf or another boat. The anchor drags and you rub against, God forbid, a reef. How does this material stand up to abrasion? Can you repair the abraded area properly? Not to pick on fiberglass, but once you've gone through that gel coat, it's really tough to properly do that and make a proper repair. What will it take to make these repairs? What tools and what materials? Now, the big one is repair at sea, or it's a big one to me. Something bad happens. The hull has taken damage. Maybe a hole, maybe a crack. It needs fixed fast and well enough to get to port. We're not talking about a proper repair. We're not talking about showroom quality repair. We're talking about getting your butt back to port. Can you store the material on board to make the repairs? The conditions will be wet. You're probably stressed. The boat is rocking and rolling. How easy will the repair be? How easy can you have the correct tools and materials on board to make those repairs at sea? Repairs in a third world country. I personally plan on going to third world countries. If you're not, skip this slide and skip this whole part. You've got a big damage, or you've taken some damage, but you've made it to a port or a cove. Now, how do you make the proper repairs? What tools will be needed to make those proper repairs? Do you have them, or do you got to bring them in? Or is there people around with the skills to make the proper repairs? What material will be needed? Third world countries, you're going to have a hard time getting the proper epoxy. You're going to have a hard time getting the proper aluminum alloy. You can't just weld different aluminum alloys together and then put it in a saltwater environment. You're going to have galvanic corrosion. How long will it take to the needed material shipped to your location and through customs? I say this because I've heard of times where people have had materials being shipped in to make their repairs, and the first 2 times they came, they never made. Somebody stole them before they ever got to the boat. They ended up ordering this stuff 3 times before they finally were able to get the materials in and get things repaired. Now, what will all this cost to make these repairs in a third world country? Again, if you're not going to any third world countries, you can skip that slide. Maintenance. What is the overall maintenance of this material? What will you need to store on the boat to do this maintenance? And how much time will it take? I mean, are you going to be wasting all your time doing maintenance and not enough time enjoying your boat? How much does this maintenance cost? Cost to build. What is the overall cost of the material? Can the material be purchased paycheck to paycheck? So, for instance, I can buy plates of steel from paycheck to paycheck. Fiberglass, you're going to have to pretty much buy all the fiberglass before you can even start on the boat. Now, you can do it paycheck to paycheck, but you're going to get pretty depressed when all your paychecks are going into material stacking up in your garage and you haven't even been able to put your boat together yet. Now, material comparison. I think a person should compare each of the materials with the consideration listed, maybe a few others that you can think of, and to determine which is the correct material for you. Each person's situation is different. What works for me might not work for you. I will list each of the materials and score them for my situation. Now, the way I'm doing it is I score 1 point for a positive, meaning it's not bad or good. 0 for plus minus, which means it could go either way. There's some good and some bad. And I subtract 1 point for a negative situation. Wood. Skills to construct, tight-fitting joints, accuracy. Not necessarily my strong points, so I gave it a negative. Handling the material. Mostly light pieces, assembled into heavier assemblies in place. So not too bad. There will be some lifting, but actually the handling of the material isn't too bad. Now, I gave the tools a plus and minus because the tools can be fairly expensive by the time you get the planes, all that, the wood boring, the long wood boring bits to do your kill bolts and such. They're fairly extensive, and some big ones. But a lot of them you're going to need for the interior anyway, so that's why I gave it a plus and minus. Impact resistant. It's not as good as steel or cement, but it's better than fiberglass. But still, I give it a negative. Rub resistant. It's not as good as steel or cement, but it's probably better than fiberglass. Repair at sea. You need good fits, and you need it dry to glue, and that's harder to come by out there. boat's rocking and rolling, you're upset, you're stressed out. Now you got to do good fits, then get everything dry enough so that you can glue it. Negative. Repair in third world countries. Now, obtaining the wood is easy because maybe it's not the exact wood you need, but it's something you can get it fixed or you can bring in. The glues, not so much. You better have those on board. Anyways, I give that a plus or minus. Maintenance. Bright work. Need I say more? Cost to build. I think it is easier paycheck to paycheck. You can buy the material fairly inexpensively if you're going to do laminated keels and such. But overall, I think you're going to spend more for the wood than you are for, say, other materials. It ends up getting a score -4. Fiberglass. The skills to construct, you're going to have to build molds, which isn't too bad, but you're going to be covered in fiberglass. You're going to be covered in epoxy. It's messy. It stinks. You probably got to wear respirators. Yeah, no. Handling the material. Yeah, mostly light pieces assembled into heavier assemblies. So not bad. Tools. Not much needed for glass. You need some paintbrush rollers. You need some epoxy stirrers. You need gloves. Most of it's really cheap tools. Impact resistance. No. It cracks and it holds. Rub resistance is horrible. Chews right through, most stuff will chew right through that fiberglass. Repairs at sea. Well, epoxy dries underwater, but they're difficult conditions, and I don't see you actually trying to get a hole fixed in your hull underwater at sea. You're going down, in my humble opinion. Yeah, you can put a sail across it, and pull it in tight, and bail a lot, but no. Repair in third world countries. Obtaining epoxy and glass is a huge pain, but the stuff's small enough you could probably carry enough of it with you to do the repairs in a third world country. Maintenance. What? Waxing and buffing? That's pretty good. I think that's probably one of the least maintenance. Cost to build. It's more expensive overall. By the time you get enough fiberglass and epoxy to build up a heavy enough hull to do it, I think you're going to be spending more money. And you must buy all the materials before you start construction. Score, -2. Steel. Skills to construct, I think you can learn to weld in a week. Take some night classes and such. It's really not that hard. Negative is handling the material. It's heavy and it's unforgiving, as my pinky finger knows, because I broke the sucker when I dropped some steel on it. Plus, you don't need a lot of tools. The welder, plasma cutter, and grinders is pretty much cover you. They are expensive, but that's all you really need. Impact resistance, very good. It'll generally bend, but it won't take a hole. Rub resistance. If you got a fiberglass hull up against a steel hull and they're rubbing together, you're going to need a new fiberglass boat. Steel's going to be fine. Repair at sea. You don't need great fits. You can weld underwater, even in stressful. I haven't actually done that, but I know it's possible, and I'm going to do some of it before I set out. Repair in a third world country. Skin from a car door will cover a hole. Now, that's not a proper repair, even in a third world country. And it doesn't have to be the exact same alloy. You can use just about any steel to cover the hole and to make the patch. There you go. Maintenance. Chipping and dipping, as we called it in the Navy. There's a bunch of it, unless you want a lot of rust spots. It's one of the things. Is it constant? No. If you like painting, maybe it won't be so bad, but that is definitely a negative. Cost to build. It's okay from paycheck to paycheck, and it's fairly cheap overall, or at least it was until the steel tariffs kicked in here recently, and that's another complaint of mine on its own. Aluminum. Plus is skills to construct. Again, you can learn to weld in a week. A plus is handling the material. Most of the material is light. Aluminum's light. Tools, just like steel, fairly decent. Impact resistant, it bends, but it will hold easier than steel. Rub resistance, bad. That stuff will grind away on you. It's too soft. Repair at sea, again, you can weld underwater. I don't know that you can weld aluminum underwater, but be worth a try and see if you can. Repair in third world countries. You cannot weld different aluminum alloys together and put it in a saltwater environment. So you've got to get the correct alloy. Maintenance is a big plus. I should have gave that 2 pluses. No paint needed except bottom paint to keep the slime and growth off of it. That's a huge plus. Minus cost to build. It's expensive to build with aluminum. Score +2. Ferro cement. Skills to construct, easy. It's like slinging mud. Wrap your wire together onto some rebar, get it in the shape of the boat, then sling mud on it. You'll be great. Handling the material, mostly light. I personally suffer from lime. It really eats holes in my skin. I had huge holes in my hand when I restacked my chimney. Tools, simple hand tools and a cement mixer will get you there. Impact resistance is great, but if it does hold, you'll need a new hull, and here's why. The salt water will get into the steel structure inside the cement, and it'll start rusting. Once it starts rusting, there ain't a whole lot you can do. You need a new hull after that. So I gave it a double minus. Rub resistance, great. Again, you put steel up against a cement boat, you're going to need a new steel boat before you need a new cement boat. Repairs at a third world country. Smear tars over the cracks, but a hole? Nah, you're done. Double minus. Maintenance. No paint needed except for bottom paint. Cost to build? Very cheap. Score +2. Conclusion. So the wood scored a -4. Fiberglass, and I know I'm going to get torn up by you woodworkers, wood boat builders. Just remember that this is for my situation, not yours. Fiberglass scored a -2. I don't know why anybody would go to sea in frozen snot. Steel scored a +5. Aluminum scored a +2. Could be a +3. Ferro cement scored a +2. The clear winner for my situation was steel. Now there's other considerations you might want to include in this whole process. For instance, insulation. Wood don't need it. Everything else does. How are you going to attach the interior to the cement or the fiberglass hulls? Systems installation. There's a lot going on there. Aluminum, you're going to have to watch for, well, steel as well, but particularly aluminum, you really got to watch that everything's properly grounded so you don't get a galvanic corrosion. And probably one of the big ones that affect some of the woodworking or wood building boat builders is aesthetics. To me, it had no bearing on the type of hull. Other people, it is a huge portion and it's weighted much better. Again, that's up to you. You decide, and you probably may have other considerations you'd add to this list. Think it through. Take your time. I created spreadsheets and documented a lot of stuff before I actually decided on steel. And I tried to keep an open mind. Admittedly, when it came to fiberglass, I didn't have much of an open mind. So anyways, those are my reasons that I came up with having a steel boat. Thanks.